You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad who has been living in my 1997 Ford van for more than a year. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deliberate Living. I'm your host, Holly Priestley, and I am here with my very good friend, Nathan Beers.
Howdy.
And his girlfriend's cat.
Phoebe, come here.
Phoebe. So if you're looking at the YouTube version of this, you can see that Beers is in his home, and Phoebe may make an appearance, or she may not. We will see. Beers and I met in August in Missoula, but we had been following each other on Instagram for a hot minute. I've used Instagram a lot. I've mentioned this in other episodes. I've used Instagram a lot to meet other people on the road doing similar.
Great tool for that.
It was a great tool for that, absolutely. Beers, why don't you tell everybody a little bit of your background and where you came from, who you are.
Oh boy.
A little bit.
So, little bit. Okay. In brief. Not my strong suit.
Not his strong suit.
So, I grew up around Atlanta. I was super conservative. I became even more conservative than like my family of origin, and kind of held myself in these really, really tight constraints, and was always butting up against walls that I just made for myself just by believing that they were there, and kept trying to do life the way I thought I was supposed to do life. I was married twice, and divorced twice, and after a second divorce, just kind of decided to deconstruct the entire way I was doing life and figure out actually how I wanted to do life. And that led me to the road. It was a great time to just be with myself, to learn to love myself, to figure out who I am. And it's led me very unexpectedly to van life, or something like van life, and soon bus life. And it's just been a flow. It's been deliberate, but also just unplanned. And just where is life going to take me, and figuring out what I want to do, and just figuring out a way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being deliberate about going with the flow is just as important as being deliberate about taking specific actions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I never set out specifically to join van life. Like I started off just on a motorcycle and with a hammock, and then eventually decided a roof would be nice. And I've got this, which isn't a van. It's a 30-year-old Chevy Suburban, which has a very small living quarters, low roof. But once I found the van life community, it's a community that I just found I fit in with more than any other community I think I've ever been a part of. And I think the main reason for that is because it's a group of other people who are choosing to live differently, choosing to not live according to the way people expect us to live. Yeah.
I talk a lot about diverging from that prescribed life that we've all been in. And you definitely followed that prescription really hard for a lot of years, and then it just didn't work for you over and over again, and your solution was, if I remember correctly, just to hit the road for a little bit, and you didn't mean to make it a full-time thing, and it just kind of accidentally fell into living off of a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it started actually the day my second wife moved out, or told me she was going to be moving out, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go for a ride for the weekend and give her the space to move her stuff. And that time by myself was just super valuable. And I got back to our house with all of her stuff gone, and it just felt miserable there. And so I was only there for a few days and hopped back on the bike. And within 2 months, I decided to go for a 2-month ride, and then came back and tried a few other things. And a few months later, I set out for a 6-month ride, and then came back and found somebody to rent my house because it didn't make sense to continue to have all the expenses of a house if I'm not living in it, and set off again. And about 4 months later, I decided a few too many sketchy squatting situations or unexpected hotel expenses something a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more shelter.
More self-contained.
Yeah, more self-contained. That's a good way of putting it. With more of the things I need that I'm actually having with me. Made sense because it was going to be the lifestyle I was going to be doing for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and you didn't get rid of the bike. You just put the bike on the back of the Suburban.
Right.
Awesome. So how long has it been that you've been on the road?
Well, since I first kind of started on my bike, July will be 4 years, so a little over 3.5.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. I don't know. It doesn't really sound like you had any like misgivings or fears or anxieties about it. You just kind of like, you did the weekend trip and it was good, and then you did a little bit longer and it was good, and you did a little bit longer and it was good, and then you're just doing it all.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, you said it well.
And that's what it sounds like. What was your immediate experience upon both doing the bike, maybe for that first like 2-month trip where you knew you were going to be out for a while? Like, what was your immediate experience there? And then also with the Suburban, once you transitioned into that, I want to know what those first like few days were like what was the transition period like was there anything that surprised you that came up?
Yeah, so I'm very much an extrovert, as you know, although I have been learning more about myself and learning that the type of work I've had for years has definitely contributed me in my social life to being more extroverted than I maybe actually am. But maybe I'll touch on that more later. But anyway, I used to surround myself with people all the time. When I lived in my house, like I had people over 3 or 4 nights a week for movie nights and themed dinners and bonfires and board games and dances and whatever. But at the end of the night, when the last person walked out the door, hey there, Phoebe, she's gonna mess up make the camera shake.
That's okay.
At the end of the night, when the last person left, like I would just feel this existential loneliness every time. And the way I addressed that was, well, I just make sure I've got people around me again, so I don't have to feel that way.
Yeah.
Instead of actually figuring out why it is I felt that way. And so when I started off on that first 2-month journey on my motorcycle, I initially was bouncing from family member or friends, so I was still around people a lot. And then I started to get into places where I didn't know anyone. I got to St. Louis and I didn't know anybody there. Ended up couch surfing, but wasn't someone that I connected like super well with. Didn't spend a ton of time with, so I spent a lot of time by myself. Went and explored some museums, the City Museum in St. Louis, Plug, by the way, is so magical.
Yeah.
It's like this giant adult playground. Not like adult, but yeah, grown-up playground. And so then I went to Chicago, where I also didn't know anybody at the time, and just went and explored the art museum there. And after about 4 or 5 days of just being solo, I found myself just severely aching for interaction.
Yeah.
And ended up finding like this couch surfing gathering. I went to, met a few people, found some people that were going to be going to the beach the next day, and I went out to the beach. And at the beach, I ended up meeting my good friend Julia. Well, she wasn't my good friend then. Now she is my good friend Julia. We were talking on the phone 45 minutes ago. But we had this conversation about podcasts and dancing and all sorts of stuff. And then she made this offhand comment about how she stopped carrying headphones a couple years before. And I'm like, but we've just been exchanging all these podcast recommendations. What do you mean you don't have headphones? She's like, well, I decided that when I listen to a podcast, I want to sit and be deliberate and intentional about just listening to it, so that when I'm walking around or I'm driving around, I am actually experiencing and I'm mindful about what's going on around me. And that was just such a novel concept to me. I'd never really heard of mindfulness before. And the next day I had a 6 or 7 hour ride ahead of me, and I decided to do an experiment and not put in any headphones, no music, no audiobooks, no podcasts, just me on my motorcycle with my thoughts.
You jumped off the deep end.
I had never in my life spent that much time with just my thoughts. And it was excruciating. I started having all of these thoughts that I didn't want to have. That, hey, Phoebe. Like all the, like I was still married at the time. Like we were separated, but like we weren't actually divorced yet. And yet like this woman I had met, like I started thinking, oh my goodness, like could this be a thing? But I'm like, no, wait, like I'm married. I can't be having those thoughts. Like that's a sinful thing to think.
Mm-hmm.
And
you grew up in a very religious community.
Right. Very religious
that matters.
Background where it was, there was these concepts of sin, of violating the God creator of the universe, just by having thoughts that weren't in line with what you were supposed to think. But I didn't, like I wanted these thoughts to stop, but I couldn't, but my mind just kind of kept going in the cycle. And that night I just exploded on Facebook about how do I make these thoughts stop? How do I get rid of a thought I don't want to have? And that new friend Julia actually called me up, and she's like, you don't make it go away. You embrace it, you give it a hug and let it, and figure out what it's trying to teach you.
Yeah.
And that was, and she told me about this book by Tara Brach called Radical Acceptance. It's about just accepting yourself for exactly who you are, and accepting everything for exactly what it is. And again, such a novel concept to me that began my journey of allowing myself to think the thoughts that I would think and feel the way those thoughts led me to feel, and then figure out what the story was I was telling myself that was driving that discomfort. And that let me step by step just deconstruct all these stories in my head and begin to piece together a new story that is just so life-giving and freeing and beautiful. And yeah, so that was one of my first experiences of just like really struggling with this discomfort with myself, of not knowing how to love myself. And just right off the bat, this lifestyle and the alone time that it provides, it began to teach me things.
I think, well, two things. One, a lot of people will assume or will ask people who are nomadic in whatever capacity they are. Sometimes they'll ask, like, well, what are you running away from? And it sounds like you might have started that journey running away from your feelings.
Yeah.
But then you were able to have that transition to now running towards your feelings and running towards, building a deliberately authentic life to you and figuring out what that means to you, and not necessarily what that means based on these parameters that you were raised with, based on the prescription that we were all sold. I
love the way you put that. That's exactly what it was. I was running from myself, and I didn't even realize I was running from myself. All these times that I would try to surround myself with people constantly for this stimulation, or listening to things constantly, it was to stimulate my mind and distract it so that I didn't have to deal with me. And then once I got a taste of the rewards of dealing with me, I started chasing that. And that led me to, oh my goodness, if I spend this solo time exploring on my own and exploring me, it just keeps notching my happiness up higher and higher and higher. And
wow. I love that. I also think it's important to note here that, a lot of people will move into these different lifestyles, out of a backpack traveling the world, or out of a van, or on a motorcycle, or whatever, and they'll just assume, like, all of the social media makes this look so glamorous, and if I just make this transition, I'll be, that beautiful bikini model standing in front of, this wonderful mountain vista or whatever. And
I love my bikini.
I know that you do. It's beautiful. But these lifestyles, like, won't solve all your problems. Like, you still have your problems, but now you have your problems in a Suburban. Now you have your problems in Bali versus having your problems in Atlanta. Like, you still have to deal with who you are, and the sooner you fall in love with your travel companion, which is the person in the mirror, like, the more you're going to get out of any lifestyle you live, even if you're following that prescription.
Right.
Even if that's like what you should be doing, like, the sooner you learn who you are, the better life is going to be.
100%.
What did your friends and family think when you left on a motorcycle and didn't come back? What was that support system, or lack thereof, like?
I've not had as challenging a time with that as I think a lot of people have, and I'm not entirely sure why. About 5 years before I got on the road, I up and moved from Atlanta to Greenville, South Carolina. I didn't know anybody in Greenville. It was a town I'd visited before, and I liked it, and I was sick of Atlanta, and so I just moved. And my family then, like, every time I talked to them, like, are you okay? What's what's happening? Why are you doing this? But I feel like even though I was really trying to live within these expectations, I think that there was always an element to me that was, well, I am gonna march to the beat of a different drum. And so like it would come out in smaller, less complete life shifting ways. And sometimes it would butt up against some of the expectations and I'd kind of pull back. But I feel like my family expected some degree of that. And so when I set off on my bike, I think they're just like, okay, I guess that's you. One of my sisters really struggled for a while with feeling like I was running from any sense of community, and that, and we actually had some uncomfortable conversations and some heated conversations that strained our relationship for a while. But she's since seen that I have beautiful community, and my community doesn't have to be rooted to a place.
Right.
And I've also grown to see that it wasn't her judging me. It was her expressing her love for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, so our relationship has improved tremendously, but that one did get a little strained for a bit, for sure.
Yeah. So that was almost 4 years ago, and you have moved from motorcycle to Suburban, and now you're working on building out a bus. What kind of experiences have like led to that progression, and like what's changed since the beginning, as far as like you and your mindset or your needs, going from too many awkward couch surfing or unexpected hotel bills to like, all right, I'm going to get a Suburban, and now you're upgrading pretty significantly again.
Yeah.
Led to all of that.
Well, the transition from the bike to the Lunchbox, the Suburban, was like all of it was unplanned, unexpected. It was it's actually kind of a funny story. I was meeting some friends in St. Pete, Florida, at a music festival, and I was thinking that I was just going to go into town and park my bike in a parking garage and take my backpack with a hammock and stuff and go to the festival, and I'd just figure out where I was going to crash for the next few nights as I went.
Yeah.
But I got into town, and St. Pete does not allow motorcycles in any parking garages. Really weird. I don't know why.
All right.
So it was only street parking, and I had all my possessions just strapped onto my bike. I'm like, I really don't want to just park that on the side of the street somewhere. And so I started trying to call around, figuring out where I could store my stuff. I tried finding someone on couch surfing locally who would let me. Tried looking for like a locker I could rent, and wasn't finding anything. Finally, a really helpful guy at the UHaul store was like, well, you could get like a 1 month rental, but it'd be like $180. Or you know what? If it's only for a couple nights, our storage vans are just $20 a night plus mileage. But if you can just leave it parked here if you want, and put your stuff in it, it's like that's amazing. I'll do that. So I leave my motorcycle parked in your lot too. I was like, oh yeah, that'd be totally fine. So I got there and I threw my bags in, and I'm looking in the back of this storage van, and I'm like, or this cargo van, and I'm like, it's got like these hooks on the wall that are like part of the frame. I could totally put my hammock up in the back of this van. And so I did, and I ended up staying in that van for like a week and a half. And I
Not in
just
the
love
parking
saying,
lot.
what's that?
Not
in the U-Haul parking lot. Yes, I know. I would not recommend this.
Mm-hmm.
U-Haul, don't come after me. Do not try this. But I ended up living in the U-Haul parking lot for like a week and a half. And it was amazing, just the freedom of having a roof every night that I could come back to. But it was like in like the heart of St. Pete. It was like great to just be able to walk around wherever I wanted from there.
Yeah.
I did have to find bars that were open late if I had to piss in the middle of the night. But I was in the middle of the city. It wasn't hard to find. So after that experience, I was like, having a roof is just game changing. And so I decided I wanted to find something that I could still carry my motorcycle with. And less than a month later, I bought the Lunchbox. And then transitioned from the Lunchbox to the bus.
How long have you been in the Lunchbox?
April 20th will be 2 years.
Okay.
So
on the motorcycle for a few months to a year, in the Lunchbox for 2 years.
Yep.
And now
yep. So I was on the motorcycle, between the motorcycle and then back at my house on and off for a year and a half to 2 years, almost 2 years.
Gotcha.
And then in the Lunchbox for almost 2 years now. And people would ask me all the time, like how long I was going to do this and how long I was going to stay in the Lunchbox. Like, get that question constantly. And my answer's always been like, I don't know. I'll be in the Lunchbox until it doesn't make sense to be in the Lunchbox anymore.
Yeah.
And there were always a few hypothetical scenarios I'd lay out. Like one, like if something happens with my work, that I've been able to work remotely, and has allowed me to sustain this mobile lifestyle. If something happens with work and I need to be stationary again to find a different job, then I guess I'll be stationary again for however long that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Or maybe if I meet someone and it's just something that's worth sticking around in one place for, then maybe I'll do that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'll meet someone and we'll decide to build something together and be on the road together. And of the three, that was always kind of the one I hoped might happen. And I kind of unexpectedly manifested that last year. I was at a tiny house festival. Actually, it was the night before the tiny house festival. Mm-hmm. I went to this vegan cafe and just went out on the patio, just sitting there by myself doing some reading. And there was this big group of people that was having a meeting for this art festival that they were planning. And at the end, like, they all were standing up, and one of them said, "Oh, let's get a group photo." And being the gregarious person I am, I spoke up and said, "I'll take the photo for you." And took the photo, chatted with a few of them, went back to sitting there with my book. And about 20 minutes later, everybody had kind of dispersed. And there was this one woman who, just the energy that she had talking to this person and talking to that person and talking to another person, like, I was so drawn, so attracted to her energy. It was weird, like how drawn I was to it. But I kind of just told myself, no, I prioritize tonight for me. I'm going to go to the Tiny House Festival in the morning, and I'm going to be around people all weekend long. Tonight is me time. So I didn't get up and say hi. She left and went out to the parking lot, and I was thinking, I actually had the thought to myself, well, if there was an opportunity there, I chose not to take it, and all is well with the world. 2 minutes later, she comes running back in, and that enthusiastic energy that I had watched be focused on this person and this person and this person was zeroed in right on me. And it felt amazing. And she's like, "Is that yours out in the parking lot?" I'm like, probably. the Lunchbox kind of stands out for those who haven't seen the exterior. It's colorful.
There will be pictures in the show notes.
Okay, cool. And she had put 2 and 2 together, thought that I belonged with this vehicle, and I was like, yeah, it is. She had seen a bumper. Well, at first she had seen the vehicle and was fascinated by it. Mm-hmm. Then she had seen one of my bumper stickers for Hostel in the Forest, this magical treehouse hostel in Brunswick, Georgia, that we both adore. And she came in and started a conversation about the hostel. We talked about it for a few minutes, and she's like, so you live in this? Yeah, I've been on the road for about 3.5 years. And wow, do you know that there's a tiny house festival here in Orlando this weekend? Yeah, I'm actually in town for it. I'm exhibiting there. She's like, oh my goodness, I'll see you there. I'll be there all weekend. And so we connected all through the weekend. She was there to look at school buses because she was wanting to buy a school bus to turn into her new home. Mm-hmm. And after the festival, a couple days later, we went out for a picnic. Our picnic turned into a 24-hour long date, and I found on Facebook Marketplace that next day a bus that fit her exact description of what she wanted, and it was within her price range. It was just 7 hours away near Atlanta, and so I sent it to her, and I was like, "You want to go get it this weekend?" Yes. So she hopped in the Lunchbox with me, and we went up and bought the bus and continued traveling together for the next 11 days until we went back to her house and started packing her stuff up so she could move out of her place. And before long, it stopped being her bus and it was our bus. And we're building it out into our new home, and it was basically exactly what I kind of hoped might happen one day. And can I cuss on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Use profanity. Yeah. I manifested the shit out of that, and it's been magical.
I love it. I think that's so sweet, and I can't wait to see what you guys do to the bus. By the time this actually comes out, there will be progress pictures. Maybe it'll be done. I don't know. Buses are a big project, so maybe it won't be all the way done. But that's okay.
Who knows? It'll take however long it's supposed to.
That's true. That is 100% true. So what do you think for you are the biggest pros and the biggest cons of the motorcycle suburban bus lifestyle?
You know, for the bike, the biggest pro for me was it really lent itself really well to that mindfulness experiment that I encountered, because you're not enclosed in a box.
No.
If it's raining out, you feel and experience the rain. If it's cold out, you feel and experience the cold. If like you actually experience so much more. You're so much more connected to the world around you when there's no walls around. I was outside all the time. Yeah. And that was, it was super grounding at a time when I needed to find my grounding. The biggest con to it was that I was outside all the time. And when it was cold, I felt the cold. When it was wet, I felt the wet. And it got pretty miserable. There were so many times when, like during the winter, when I was in Florida for the winter, and even then there'd be times it would just get too cold to keep riding, and I would have arranged like a place to couch surf for a night, and it would the place would still be an hour ride away, and it was just too cold to keep riding, and there wasn't like a good place to officially camp, and so I'd find something. I flipped in and behind abandoned buildings a few times, which definitely didn't communicate that to my family at the time. And yeah, and that was just, it was anxiety inducing, that aspect of it for sure. So pro and con of that. Pro of the Lunchbox has been that I have a roof, that I have some level of privacy, that I have a sink with running water and a refrigerator and lights and a place to charge my phone and laptop and oven and stove and like stuff that you have in a house. Just a very, very tiny house. The con has been that my ceiling is about 4 feet high. I cannot stand in my home. I can't even be on my knees in my home. I have to crawl around in my house, which when I've been in other people's vans, like hanging out in your van, like it feels like a home.
It's amazing because I can stand in it.
Yes, like stand and walk around, and it's just like mind blowing as I started meeting like vanners and realized that I actually fit in with van life. I got into other people's vehicles, and this, it made me feel like I was camping all the time in the Lunchbox versus actually living in a home. And nothing wrong with that, but it just feels so much more relaxing. Like when you can really feel like fully comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest con. For a bus, pro and con of bus life, I don't know yet. We haven't really gone anywhere with the bus. We just got our floors down a couple days ago and spent the first night actually in the bus. We've been largely living in the Lunchbox while building the bus, which 2 people and a cat living in this tiny space gets real tight. My bed is a twin size bed. So again, real tight.
Yeah.
We like to cuddle, which is nice, but it's good to have some space sometimes. And the bus, like it literally feels like a mansion. Like I'm just looking around in it, and it's mind boggling trying to imagine actually living in a space that big, just because I haven't in such a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. I think that one of the biggest cons is that it's a bus. It's big. It can't go a lot of places.
Yeah.
And we are planning to take... What's that?
No parking garages for you.
Yeah, definitely not. The Lunchbox is too tall for parking garages anyway. But not that the vehicle's too tall. I just have so much stuff piled on top.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the bus is just going to be a lot more limited in where we can take it, where we can park it. But we are planning to carry both motorcycles on the back.
Oh, good.
Hopefully, we need to talk with an engineer to make sure that it's actually feasible. I've got a welder friend that's going to help us build a platform for the bikes, but we do want to make sure that it can actually do it.
Yeah.
But that will help things a lot, because then we'll be able to park somewhere outside of town, and we'll both have our own means of transportation to be able to go and do our own things on the motorcycles.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key. Not that I've traveled with people in my rig a ton. I've done it a few times for a couple of days at a time. Mostly if I'm traveling with other people, we all have our own vehicles.
Right.
And that is so nice for when, like, I'm an introvert. You are a massive extrovert. So when I need my own time, I just come to my own house. But if I was living with an extrovert, that would be something that you'd have to negotiate, like something that, you know, people need to navigate in ways that you don't necessarily need to navigate, you know, in a house that has extra bedrooms and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, and actually, believe it or not, Marissa out extroverts me.
I don't believe it.
I am shocked. Like it's a really weird dynamic for me because I've never really spent much time with anybody who is more extroverted than me.
There aren't many people out there who are more extroverted than you.
Well, it's been funny. Like she's seen comments from you and like our messaging and stuff about like saying just how extroverted I am, and she's been a little bit confused because she's like I don't see this side of you. Like, well, because you are so off the map extroverted that I seem introverted in comparison. I know. But the bus, it's going to be kind of nice because it's going to be big enough that we can both have our own space. I actually just the other day got I started a new job, and so I decided to reward myself with a new toy, and so I got some AirPods that have like noise cancellation.
Ooh, nice.
And for meditation, it's amazing. Yeah. I had never thought about like using noise cancellation to like shut out the other sounds, so I can just like listen to a guided meditation and just be with fewer audio distractions. And we were realizing that like we both have like some noise canceling headphones of some sort in the bus. Like we can actually like have our own spaces like fully, which that's gonna be a fun tool, I think.
That's gonna be killer. You guys are gonna love it. I really cannot wait to see how your visions come together, and you know, I know I'll see you on the road, so
yeah,
we'll get it. But you'll dwarf my van and make me look like a puny little ant in comparison.
Yeah, well, we actually, one of our plans with the bus is to have our tentative floor plan right now. We're going to have 4 extra beds. We both, when we've been stationary, we both were very active couch surfing hosts, and we just love being able to host people and allow people to come and stay. And so we're hoping to be able to use the bus for that. We're going to have some fold-out Murphy beds, and like the benches we're intending to be able to convert into some cots and stuff. So we'll be able to have people stay with us or travel with us for a time, which is going to be fun. That's part of our vision for this lifestyle together.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. Do you mind if I ask you personal questions about how much it cost you to live on the motorcycle and live in the Suburban, and what the finances look like and how you afford it?
You can, and I will answer to the best of my ability.
I know it's one of those questions that people feel a little squirmy about, and also, you know, some people are really on top of their bank accounts and they know exactly to the penny how much they spent on their conversion, and some people are more like, well, I made it work.
Yeah, well, and I'm kind of, I feel like there's a small number of road people who have full-time corporate jobs doing road life. Mm. And I am in that small minority, and my income is, I think, substantially higher than most road people. My rig is a 30-year-old rig. It's not an expensive thing, but as I built it out and as I pay for gas and stuff, like, honestly, for me, the expense of it, the cost of it, has never it's not something I've really paid a lot of attention to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it costs less than I was spending when I was living stationary. I don't entirely know because I don't budget very much. There's just
probably depends on how much driving you're doing and
right. And I drive a lot more than a lot of road people I know. I bounce around, and a 5-hour drive is a short drive to me. But yeah, so like feeling like I've got a lot of friends who they have to figure out, okay, how am I going to pay for gas to get from here to there? And that's a luxury I've had with the type of work I have, that I've never had to really think hard about filling up my gas tank.
So the job that you have, I know you changed jobs recently, but the job that you've had for the majority of your road life was the one that you had when you were stationary, and then you were able to take it on the road with you. Is that true?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So were you working remotely before, and then just kept being remote, or were you in an office and then you negotiated with them like that you would then be remote?
No, I had been, well, when I left the company that I'd been with 2 months ago, I had been with that same company for almost 16 years. So I'd been there a long time. And most of that time, what was that?
I've barely been doing anything that long.
Same. That was actually the most consistent aspect of my life. Until 2 months ago, I shucked that off and am starting a new thing there too. But lots of new things recently. But so I had worked most of my time with that company remote, but the majority of that time I'd been remote. I worked from home in like a home office, or sometimes like often just from like my sofa or something, but I always just worked from home. And then about 6 years or so ago, I realized that it occurred to me that I could work from a coffee shop. So I started sometimes working from a coffee shop, which I really enjoyed, just getting out of the house. And then my second wife was a teacher, and so she had summers off, and so we would spend the summers going and visiting her parents or her aunts or whatever, and I would just take my laptop and work from these other homes. And that was the first time, it feels like very basic concepts, but that was the first time I realized that, oh, wait, I don't have to work from my home or a coffee shop in my town.
Nope. I
can be in Pittsburgh or in Wilmington or in New Hampshire and still be working from home, working remotely. And so then when I started traveling solo, it was just, all right, I'm just going to continue working from a coffee shop, and it'll just be in a different coffee shop every day in a different town every day. And I ran it by my boss once I realized before I took that first 2-month trip, and she's like, I mean, yeah, you're in coffee shops all the time anyway. Like, I don't have a problem with that. So it was just an easy transition.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds amazing. And I think that's really important to point out to people. One of the biggest topics about, changing any of your lifestyle dynamics, especially how you're living and where you're living, is how you're going to afford it. And, a lot of people talk about being self-employed or doing seasonal jobs or things like that. And those are awesome. And those really, really work for a lot of people. Right. And also there are a lot of remote full-time options out there too. They might take a little bit more, hunting down. But if you can find one, or if you can take the job that you already have and take it on the road with you, I mean, that's killer. That's amazing.
Right. And one of the, and there's advantages and disadvantages to any of those. Like the friends I have, the road friends I have who work seasonal jobs and stuff, they're able to just go off grid for weeks at a time and go out into the middle of nowhere where there's no cell service and just really escape. And I envy that because I that's an area where I don't have that flexibility. Like I can go wherever I want on the weekends. I can go off grid, and I can take some PTO time from work to do that on occasion. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, Monday through Friday, like I need to be where I can have internet, like whether it's a coffee shop or strong enough cell service to be able to just tether to my phone. But I need to generally be close to civilization during the business day, during the business week. And granted, the flip side of that is those who do the seasonal work, they're the ones who often have to think about, okay, that town where my friends are that I would love to hang out with is a 4-hour drive away. That's going to cost me $40 in gas. I only have $20, so I guess I'm not going to go hang out with those friends. Whereas for me, like that's, I don't think twice about that. So there's advantages and disadvantages to all of it.
Absolutely. There's so many pros and cons. And that's kind of the whole point, you know, of this podcast, is to highlight all of the ways that people are making it work. Because, you know, as we say in the van community a lot is, you know, your mileage may vary. What works for me might not work for you. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that my option is any better or worse than yours, or that yours is any better or worse than mine. You got to figure out a way to, you know, build a life deliberately that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who is kind of on that cusp, who wants to, you know, switch things up and you know, take a 2-month road trip, or even just move on to the road, and they're not really sure, they're on the fence? What kind of advice would you give to that person?
If you're interested in it, just do it.
Yeah.
Whether you're driving around in your Toyota Corolla and you just put the seat down in the back and lay down a camp sleep pad, and you have a little single burner propane stove, just do it.
I have to do exactly that.
yeah, same. And it's, I've got a friend who he's lived in his Kia Sportage for the last 2 years. Yeah. Like the Lunchbox I think of as having a small living space, but like, damn, that's tight for 2 years. And or a year, it's a long time. I don't remember exactly how long, but yeah, just whatever you've got, try it out.
Yeah.
You're going to be presented with challenges, and you're going to figure out how to surmount those challenges, or you're not.
Yeah.
But just try it, because whether you surmount that challenge or not, you're going to have another challenge and another challenge and another challenge, because it's life.
Yeah.
And
life is.
Yeah, and just choose to live the way you feel inclined to live, and see how you can figure it out. I think a lot of people who are considering some sort of road lifestyle get stuck on trying to figure out the logistics of exactly how they're going to make it work, and they get into this sort of decision paralysis where they feel like they want to have all the T's crossed and I's dotted. Hey, Lisa. And
a little left out here, everybody.
and if you wait until you've got it all figured out, then 1, you're probably never going to get started. And 2, when you get started and you think that you've got it figured out and you realize very quickly that you don't, you're going to be extra frustrated. Mm-hmm. So just do it. Just try it. Jump in.
Your curiosities. Try a little bit here and a little bit there. I mean, one thing that I've said before, especially with my own journey, was, you know, nothing I'm doing is like a lifelong commitment, you know, like I'm not committing to living in a van for the rest of my life. I'm doing it right now. It works right now. You know, like you said about being on the road and, you know, being in the lunchbox, and then maybe you'll upgrade. Like I'll do it until it doesn't make sense to do it, until I don't want to do it anymore. And then I'll do something else.
Right.
I think that's really key. Start where you are and follow your curiosities.
Yeah. And another thing is, granted, I have a lot of privilege, being white and cisgendered and male, but my experience, and a lot of people who don't have those privileges might very well have different experiences, but my experience is trust people and ask for help when you need it. And I have met so many incredibly generous, kind people on the road, who are willing to go out of their way to help out when I find myself stranded in the middle of nowhere, or find myself with a mechanical issue that I don't have the expertise to fix, and an old man who was a retired mechanic decides to stop and spend the rest of his day helping me out. And people who let me park at their home in a great neighborhood in a cool city for weeks at a time, and are sad to see me go. And just so many amazing people that, for me, if I let myself be afraid of people, then I wouldn't have these experiences of the universe just giving and giving and giving.
Yeah, I think that that's really key. I think that I've definitely experienced a lot of my own, like, opening up to opportunity and to people. And, you know, like as an introvert and a more shy person, that has been really cool to see. I mean, and I know I have a lot of privilege as well as like a white cisgendered female. And so my experience is my own. But I agree, you know, like there's some things that I do differently than you do because I'm a female and not a male, right? Like, like I don't want to draw attention to my vehicle. Your vehicle is unmissable.
I love driving down the highway and having all of the goosenecking.
Yeah. I like just kind of blending in as much as I can, which is not very, because the van is very big, but I do my best. And so, yeah, I think that following your curiosity and doing a little bit here and there, knowing that you're not committing to anything, pivot as necessary, and allow yourself the opportunities that the universe can provide for you, and the people that you can meet, and the ways that you can help others also.
Yes. Yeah. That's been really neat. Just the opportunities, to be that unexpected, I don't know, answer to prayer or manifestation of what someone needed, in a way that is life-giving to myself, to be able to give to someone else, and realizing that perspective of how life-giving it is for me when I can give to someone, that helps open me up to allowing other people to give back, because it's life-giving to them. And it's just making each other's day, and just this mutually beneficial, magical thing.
I love it. So if people wanted to come follow along on your journey, or on your bus journey, or come find you on the internet somewhere, how would they do that?
Right now don't have any type of YouTube presence or whatnot, but my Instagram is the.nomadic.beers. Beers like the drink, BWRS, the nomadic beers. And then for our bus journey, it's Phoebes Bus, FEEBS_bus. Stands for Follow Energy Everywhere Bus. And the bus is named Phoebes after Phoebe the cat.
I love it. And I'll link to all of that in the show notes as well. So if you get direct links, you don't have to deal with trying to spell that all out. But that's awesome. Thank you so much, Beers. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. Excited to be here and so good to catch up with you.
Yes. Let's do this more often, please.
I like that. I like that plan.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. We've reached the end of this episode of Deliberate Living. You can find the show notes and everything we referenced over on my website, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on YouTube, or sign up for email updates every time something new is published. I'll see you next time on Deliberate Living, and until then, keep your life on the DL too.